Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. A work program is planned for our Finland property that contains diamond-bearing kimberlite. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ADD, and the Frankfurt Exchange, symbol 82A1. Please visit our website at arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Chris Gardner. He's the president of the Independent Contractors and Business Association of BC. Welcome to our show, Chris.
Good to be on. Thank you for inviting me.
Our brand new NDP/Green government has presented, I guess we might call it a mini budget. Did you see anything in there that would make your association happy?
Well, I think, anytime that, my first comment would be that this is an initial review by a new government of the status of the finances of the province, and they started to outline their priorities and have started to indicate where they're going to be heading on in some of the most in some significant areas. So what we've seen in the budget is a focus on supports for low-income rental housing, and they have reduced taxes for small businesses from 2.5% to 2%. They have, though, increased the general corporate tax rate from 11% to 12%, and they're going to be increasing the carbon tax on April 1st of 2018 by $5 a ton, and the carbon tax is no longer going to be revenue neutral. They've also increased personal income taxes by about 2% for those who are making over $150,000 a year. So I think what they've done is and I think voters certainly in Metro Vancouver sent a message loud and clear in the last election. They were concerned about issues of affordability, and affordability it's not just about the increase in the price of homes, which is a very significant issue because it's happened so dramatically over the last number of years. But it's also about the tolls on the bridges and MSP payments and a number of other areas where costs were increasing and wage growth wasn't keeping pace. And I think the government's trying to address that. And our concern, we don't disagree that more needs to be done to address affordability across the board. Our concern has been with the approach on some of the larger infrastructure projects where they've signaled that, for example, the Massey Tunnel replacement, they're going to put that to a review. So they're stopping the preliminary construction that had been taking place, and the Ministry of Transportation was in the process of selecting a proponent to build a new bridge. So they've paused that, and our concern there is that the tunnel's 60 years old. The Corporation of Delta has done a lot of work on the imperative to replace that from a safety perspective. And, to not move ahead on that in a timely way, I think we're just pushing that down the road further. And, in the Lower Mainland, we have the Patella Bridge, which is an example of governments delaying the replacement of an important piece of infrastructure to the point now where it's literally falling into the Fraser, and they're going to have to shut it down in a few years if they don't replace it. And we don't want to be in that same position with the Massey Tunnel.
We'll have more with Chris Gardner right after the break.
I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario. With grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold, a drill program will commence this spring to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork. For more information, visit our website, rmroyalty.com.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company. with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Gardner. Chris, what about Site C in the Peace River region, the big dam that they're going to build there, and also the Kinder Morgan pipeline? If you cancel those, that's billions of dollars sucked out of the BC economy. And in the construction industry, what's there to replace that income and keep BC being the best province when it comes to economic growth?
Well, Site C is a it's a project that we feel strongly about. It's 20% complete. We think the focus should be on finishing the project on time and on budget. And the last updates from Hydro in the spring were that the project indicated the project was on time and was going to come in on budget. And the new government has asked the BCUC to do a review of the project. And they've had a fairly narrow terms of reference for the BCUC, but the preliminary review was to take place over a 6-week period. And then a final report 6 weeks after that, so a total of 12 weeks. And it's our contention that's not a sufficient amount of time to review a very complicated, multi-billion-dollar infrastructure project. It was a project that was reviewed by an independent provincial and federal panel for 3 years. And that panel, they consulted widely. They analyzed every aspect of the project, and they recommended the approval, and they also attached 150 legally binding environmental and technical conditions that BC Hydro has to meet during the construction and operation of the dam. So a lot of work has gone into the planning of Site C, more than a decade. There's 2,500 people working on there right now. It will provide clean electric power for the next 100 years. So as we shift from fossil fuels into clean energy and we move to an era of electric cars, having Site C generating clean electric power is an important strategic asset for British Columbians for the next 100 years, and will help us be more competitive as an economy. It will lock in cheaper hydroelectric rates, and we've seen what's happened in Ontario, where they haven't done the same kind of planning, and their hydroelectric rates are now some of the highest in North America. So consumers are paying that, and businesses looking to locate in Ontario are asking themselves, well, do we want to move to a jurisdiction where the price of power is so expensive? So I think the debate right now, I think, is a little short-sighted. I think we should be focusing on building, on getting that project built. And it would send, I think, to cancel Site C now would do severe damage to BC's reputation and send a highly negative signal to both Canadian and international investors. And the message would be that our regulatory approvals in British Columbia don't mean anything, because the government can come along at a whim, and when a project's 20% complete, stop it and say you don't have a project anymore. And that's not a good signal to be sending to companies looking to invest in British Columbia.
What kind of penalties would we have to pay if they canceled Site C with contracts that are already written?
Well, there's no doubt that we haven't, those contracts aren't publicly available, but, they would all have provisions that would require some form of, you're going to have to pay the costs to demobilize very expensive equipment and individuals, and there'll be costs related to remediating the site. There will be certain penalty provisions. So I think all in, the taxpayers could be on the hook for, something close to $4 billion and would have nothing to show for it. So it would be, it would be a very, that decision to cancel would be very negative for the province. And I think we need to get to a place where, when we're looking at big projects like Kinder Morgan or Site C or the George Massey Tunnel, that the review, we have to take the politics out of the review process, and the review should be independent, should be robust. But once a project's approved, it should move forward. And the challenge is that we reflexively in British Columbia, and I would argue Canada, say no. when a big project is proposed, the first reaction is no, we don't want to do it because it will have this impact, it will have that impact. Well, the reality is, whether you're building a new subdivision or a new townhome complex or replacing existing infrastructure, everything has an impact. And if we're not going to build our economy and the pieces of infrastructure that are important to ensure that we can move people and goods around our region, around our province, then companies and businesses and investment will go to other jurisdictions that are building this infrastructure.
We'll have more with Chris Gardner right after this.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Gardner. Chris, the 1% increase on the corporate income tax, is that enough to chase business away, or can they swallow it?
I wouldn't. I think if you look at the cost impact of what's happened in British Columbia over the last couple of years. So we went from the HST to the PST. We've got a very complicated regulatory regime. The BC Business Council is estimating that we've added $3 billion to the cost of doing business in BC. So I think it's about balance, and it's about ensuring that we have a strong and healthy economy that's going to attract investment, because it's that investment in a healthy economy that's going to ensure that we can make the investments into our social programs, into education, and in healthcare that we need to have vibrant and dynamic communities. And the challenge is sometimes we lose sight of the fact that it is about ensuring that we have a strong economy to underpin healthy and growing communities. So, for example, if you look at the most recent job reports, we do have a strong job growth in Canada, but if you look at it a little closer, the 150,000 jobs that were created in the last report that came out, over 80,000 were part-time jobs. And so part-time jobs don't pay as much as obviously as full-time jobs, and a lot of them are service sector jobs. So when you look at Site C, you got 2,500 skilled workers that are highly paid, highly trained. They're adding to the economy, and the same with the folks who are going to be hopefully building the Kinder Morgan pipeline. The investment into training those people, the investment in the new technologies to construct and to operate those facilities is significant, and it's an important part of our economy. Construction employs over 200,000 British Columbians. It makes up about 10% of our economy. So we need to ensure that we have a balance in terms of our tax system that's going to attract investment, not scare investment away. It's easy to if you're in government, to say we're going to add 1% here and 0.5 point here, but at some point the cumulative effects over time will be negative.
I find it strange we have a government that's against oil pipelines and also against hydroelectric power, it seems. Do you find a real conflict of interest there?
Well, it's hard to understand. And in 2009 and 2010, Andrew Weaver, who was not an MLA at that time, was very supportive of Site C and said it's a project that has to go forward. So it's interesting. As we move away from fossil fuels toward electric cars, Site C to me makes sense.
Well, also you have countries like China, Britain, and France plan to go gasoline and diesel free in about 20 years. So in other words, the whole rest of the world is going to be depending on electricity to run our vehicles. Where would BC be without Site C if we're the same kind of policies adopted in Canada? Because I think Ottawa said 2050. The other people are saying 2040.
Well, there's no jurisdiction in the world that, if it had the same kind of hydroelectric potential that we have, wouldn't be rushing to build Site C and other hydroelectric dams. So it just makes sense for, a long-term energy strategy, our clean energy future. So to stop Site C now wouldn't make sense. It would cost taxpayers billions of dollars, and I think would hurt our ability to compete and to make the transition off of fossil fuels. And as you said, other countries are moving in that direction. And we have a tremendous opportunity to lock in a source of clean energy for over 100 years. We should be doing that.
Well, W.C. Bennett was really credited. He paved BC and he brought hydroelectricity everywhere, affordable. And I always thought BC's big advantage for business was that the electricity here was very affordable. Go ahead, smelt aluminum, develop mines, develop natural resources. We have the power to do it affordably. Would this be just like Ontario, where people truly have to make a decision? Do I pay the rent, or do I pay the power bill, and do I freeze in the winter?
Well, I think we're getting to a point where we're going to get around. If the government canceled Site C, and it's working very hard to ensure that Kinder Morgan's not built, we're sending a signal that says you can't get big projects built in British Columbia. And companies will hear that message loud and clear, and they'll look elsewhere. And it will hurt our economy. It will hurt our ability to compete, because energy prices, by extension, then would be higher going forward. It would do, I think, some significant damage to our ability to attract new investment into the province. And it's easy to say no. And what we need is the courage of elected officials to find ways to get yes, and find ways to build things like a new bridge to replace the Massey Tunnel, to continue on and build Site C, to build the Kinder Morgan pipeline. And there's always a reason to say no. And you're always going to have, groups that oppose everything. If you propose a new seniors complex in a neighborhood, you're going to have a group of neighbors who are going to come out and say they don't want to have the seniors complex in their neighborhood. Their
wheelchairs will leave skid marks on the sidewalk.
Yeah. So, and the challenge is, it's that well-organized, vocal minority whose voices often get heard, and the voices of common sense, the common sense majority of British Columbians, is often lost in that debate. And so I think on issues like Site C, we launched a campaign as part of our Get to Yes, Grow the Economy effort, and we've had over 4,000 people write letters to elected officials in British Columbia saying move ahead with Site C.
Is there an open door of communications between the business community and the new socialist government in BC?
Yeah, I think so. I would say that they've provided a number of opportunities to, new ministers have started to meet and reach out with stakeholders, and I think the key is not that the meetings will take place. It's what they do when they hear a message that sometimes they're not going to want to hear, and how they respond, and how they, governments and political parties have an agenda, and stakeholders engage, and hopefully, as we start to engage with the new government, they will move off of some of the more negative aspects of their priorities. And I think the business community is going to have to do a lot of work to ensure that the new government doesn't do things like cancel Site C, and finds a way to build a new bridge to replace the aging George Massey Tunnel, and finds a way to move forward on Kinder Morgan. It's going to be difficult, just because of the natural orientation of the government is that they don't support these types of projects, and they make that clear. And with the departure of Darryl Plecas from the BC Liberal Caucus, and his move to be Speaker of the House, it gives the government an extra room. So I would say that the reality is politically, this government's going to go to the end of the mandate. So it's 4 years of a government that has a very different set of priorities than the previous free enterprise government.
Now, could extending SkyTrain out, building hospitals, more schools for Surrey, which really needs it, could that help replace those projects? Or is it because that's taxpayer money and not free enterprise money? It's a whole different ballgame.
No, listen, our contention is it's not about choosing different infrastructure projects. We need new schools, we need new hospitals, but we also need bridges and roads, and we need Site C, and we need the Kinder Morgan expansion. You can't just pick a sector of the economy and say we're just going to invest in schools and hospitals. And so from a construction perspective, we need to have the industrial, commercial, and residential sectors of construction all working in sync and all active and dynamic, because, again, it employs over 200,000 British Columbians. And so it's not about saying, well, we'll cancel Site C and then we're going to take 2,500 people who are working on Site C and then have them build hospitals and schools. It doesn't work that way. We were concerned earlier in the year when, Andrew Weaver was in Fort St. John and said, construction jobs are artificial and these are temporary jobs. Well, every construction project has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You finish that project, you move on and build another project. And people make a very good living and gain exceptional skills working in construction. So they're not artificial jobs, they're not temporary jobs. Projects have a lifespan of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. In Site C's case, it was 8 years. 2,500 people having a job for 8 years, a high-paying job, highly skilled people, is significant. And we need to build that kind of expertise in British Columbia so that we can build other projects. So I think it's not about saying we're not going to build Site C or George Massey or Kinder Morgan, but we are going to build hospitals and schools. That's not the construction market doesn't work that way. The economy doesn't work that way. It's not a healthy way to look at building infrastructure. We need both. We don't need George Massey. It's not a choice between George Massey and Patella Bridge. We need them both. It's not a choice between George Massey and a hospital. We need them both. And government has to find a way to ensure that we can build the infrastructure we need to keep our economy competitive and to keep our communities healthy by building hospitals, and we need to invest in education so people have the skills when they graduate, when they receive their training to compete in the workplace.
Chris, maybe explain too, your association is one of the biggest educators in British Columbia. Explain how that works.
Well, we train over 3,000 people a year, and that's everything from professional development courses, courses that are aimed at enhancing your skills once you are, if you're a project manager and you need to increase your understanding of construction law or project management. We have all kinds of courses that allow people to do that. So, training 3,000 people a year, we're training them across the province, and it's important because one of the things about construction is it's a highly skilled activity, and when you see what people do, whether you're building a new home or a high rise or something as complicated as a dam, the skills that the workforce has are quite phenomenal, and it's quite amazing to see what they're able to do in relatively short periods of time. So training is an important part of what we do, and we're expanding our efforts in the training side, and we have over 2,000 members and clients, and they employ over 50,000 people in this province. So we've we're an organization that's focused on ensuring we have a strong and dynamic construction sector.
Chris, thank you so much for talking with us.
Great. Thank you very much.
My guest has been Chris Gardner, president of the Independent Contractors and Business Association, their website, icba.ca. You're listening to the Goddard Report. If you have any questions for the show or our guests, you can email us at info@housestreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.